people want to recruit people that are a pleasure to work with. They're easy to work with, and communication has a lot more to do with that than you might realise. So this show will talk about the communication behind being likeable. As recruiters are having to recruit more and more globally, I'm working with quite a few recruiters at the moment. Now, what recruiters are telling me time and time again is that what they're looking for is somebody that is going to be a good fit for the organisation, and they're really having a tough time finding the right candidates for the role. But the problem is, if they recruit somebody that is a bad fit for the organisation, the team that have already been put under a lot of pressure to cover the work for the person that left now have to invest their time to train up someone new. So if it's somebody that doesn't fit the team, that means that they have to start the whole procedure all over again, which puts even more pressure on the team. Welcome to the Clever Together Communication podcast. This is a podcast that is created for people that want to have a bigger impression on people. They want to move the needle, get things done. By being a likeable person, you are likely to get more done. You're likely to have less stress, less friction at work. So more productivity, less stress. I just want you to take an opportunity to think of maybe 4 or 5 people that you really enjoy working with, and maybe some people that you don't enjoy working with. Because sometimes it's easier to reverse engineer these things, isn't it? So think about the behaviours and the comments that these people are making. And what you'll probably come up with is pretty much a list of what you need to be a more likeable person. I'm assuming that you're all pretty likeable when you're not under pressure. I know that I'm certainly a lot more likeable when I'm not under pressure. But there are things that you can do to make yourself more approachable, and that starts with listening skills. So, you have to really focus on what people are saying. Listen and understand what's being said to you. And if you don't understand, ask. If you say to a recruiter, do you want somebody who's bright or somebody who's willing to learn? Almost always they will say to you, I want somebody who's willing to learn. I want somebody who is willing to develop as an individual, who is keen to learn new software, new approaches, whatever they need to grow in the organisation and to push us forward as a company. So listening skills are the first thing. Number 2 is being reliable. And when I talk to some of my clients about this, if you are a punctual person, that makes the impression that you're going to be reliable. Now, this was quite an eye-opener for me because I like to be seen as being a very reliable person. That's like a big value for me. But my punctuality isn't something that comes easily to me. So I think I'm going to focus on that for the next week. Then, talking about trustworthiness, we were talking about things like being a team player and being trustworthy kind of fell into the same pot, really. So I'm thinking about things like, keeping people in the loop, keeping them up to speed, telling them what's going on, telling them where you are on the project, what you're struggling with, what's going smoothly, all of this stuff. If you tell people what's going on, the chances are that they will feel included and they will feel calm. They will have the reassurance that things are moving forward. We also talked about, things like a bit of give and take. There are some people, they always take the Christmas holiday off and they always take the Easter holiday off, and there's always somebody, isn't there, that's ill every single month, or there's somebody who is constantly unavailable to take on extra work. Those are the people that aren't necessarily going to really gel with the team because it always feels like they're disrupting the flow. So having somebody that can really give and take, that's very important, I think. Then we're talking about being, approachable. If you're approachable and helpful and maybe a little bit optimistic, this helps you to be seen to be a reliable member of a team, somebody trustworthy, somebody that you can go to with a question or a challenge or a problem, because that's the sign of a great team. If you have a feeling that at any time you can put your hand up and say, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here, or I really cannot fix this, or do you know of a workaround? That's when the team is going to grow as a unit to be a more productive and more innovative team, because the moment you can reach out at any time, that's when innovation comes into play as well. Which brings me on to things like observations and being open-minded, because if you are observant of your team members, you will intuitively know if they need help. You'll be able to tell by their body language. You'll be able to tell by maybe the frown on their face, or how they're clenching their fist or spinning with their pencil. Whatever it is, you'll be able to pick up on that if you're being observant. And be open-minded. There's always more than one way to fix a problem. There's always more than one way of doing something. So what a lot of my clients have said when we've been talking about approachability and being a good member of the team this week was that being open-minded was really, really key. Being open to a new way of doing things, being open to a new feature, being open to doing something a different way or in a different order, or documenting things in a different way, or testing in a different way. Whatever it is, if you are open-minded, that makes you generally a more popular member of the team. So in terms of being helpful then, we talked about how you can normally recognize or know who needs some help. Be prepared to reach out to that person, because if the person always has to reach out for help, then they might feel a little bit intimidated after a while, and their confidence might feel a little bit crushed. So if you can kind of beat them to it, you keep their confidence high and they'll feel like they belong to the team. So then we talked about, people like team members that are hardworking, that are conscientious. And the word conscientious has tripped a few people up this week. Conscientious means that you're working hard, that you're willing to put in the extra hours or go the extra mile or do that little thing extra, to make it all pan out. And what did come up as well was that it's easier to work with people that aren't really uptight. Now, it's good to be ambitious, it's good to be detail orientated, it's good to be professional, no question about that at all. That's what we want, right? But on the other hand, it's important to have this slight relaxed nature. People that are easygoing and laid back tend to be easier to work with than people that get upset very easily, that are very sensitive. So if you are a sensitive person, it will kind of affect people's ability to warm to you as much, because people are stepping on eggshells a little bit, you see. So that was the next thing we looked at. The next thing we looked at was things like, people are kind of moody. Like sometimes you can be moody because you're just being authentic. Like you just don't feel great, so you might just let that go. But if you're moody too often, that can really put a dampener on the team feeling. So, try and be in a good mood. And if you're in a good mood, try and smile. I think it's easy, isn't it? If we're concentrating on something or if we're focused on something, then obviously you're not going to be smiling. But if you approach somebody and you always have what I call a upside down face, then you might well give off the wrong impression. And this is all to do with optimism, open-mindedness. This all kind of taps in together. It's like a cobweb really of different communication styles and skills. So being likable, being a member of the team that people want to work with is actually a lot more complicated than you think about. But obviously you don't think about it all the time, but I think it's definitely worth pondering, what is it that I can do more of? So next we came up with, people that are two-faced. In the UK we have this term called two-faced. So if somebody says, oh, Corinne, I really enjoyed your podcast, and then they went to somebody else and said, did you hear that podcast? There was absolutely no content. There was no summary at the end. She didn't tell us what's coming up next week. You know, these are the mistakes I make sometimes. So, you know, saying one thing to your face and then saying something else to somebody else, you know, or saying to me, oh, I like your hair, Corinne. And I say, oh, thanks. As if I have any control over my hair. And then they go to someone else and say, oh my God, have you seen Corinne's hair? It looks completely crazy today, which is the kind of thing my son would say to me, actually. So, yeah, that's being two-faced. And of course, gossiping. I don't know about you, gossiping makes me feel incredibly anxious and incredibly awkward. And I just really don't enjoy spending time with people that gossip. And I think this is something that people do more as they get older. So if you're getting a little bit older, you might want to keep a lid on that. So, and how do you know if somebody's willing to learn? Well, often they'll be writing things down, but even the people that don't write things down might well be showing that they are listening by giving you the space to speak, not interrupting. And, you know, really paying attention. You can often tell by people's eyes, the creases around the eyes. Maybe that's why I've got lots of wrinkles. That's it. Okay. So, but also these people will be asking questions or trying to get clarification just to be sure that they've understood you. And they might ask you for examples or exceptions, or is that what happens when this and this happens? Oh yeah, right, I've got it. So, you know, just kind of summarizing and clarifying. These are really good skills to show the person that's telling you something or showing you something that you're paying attention and you're taking it all in. So what are the kind of comments then that you should look out for? A lot of this came down to politeness. So we're thinking about things like saying please and thank you, but, you know, also showing appreciation, because praise goes a long way, right? Telling somebody that they've done a good job, or well done, or much appreciated. I really appreciate that. Thank you. These are little things. They are short words. They are not complicated. And if you don't feel comfortable giving feedback, being thankful, being appreciative, pleases and thank yous, excuse me, sorry, do you mind? You might want to pay attention to that too. Now, giving advice might not feel like an obvious contender for our nice to work with list, but actually, if you are able to give advice, that is a huge gift of acknowledgement. Somebody who gives you advice, I'm talking about constructive advice that will help you grow as an individual, that will help you grow as a professional. That is a present, a gift, and you should take that with both hands, with gratitude, because that's the way we grow as an individual, and that's the way that the team will grow step by step. So learn to accept advice, but also be brave enough to give advice, because normally we really appreciate constructive advice. So be brave and offer advice. You can always ask people first, would you like some feedback on that? And feedback actually is a topic for another podcast coming very soon. Then, of course, we talked about humour. You know, there's no harm in having a bit of a laugh at work. It is okay to smile and laugh, you know, and a bit of a chuckle here or there. That just lightens the load at work, doesn't it? Obviously, if you're making jokes all day, that can be a little bit tedious. But by having a little bit of humour and a little bit of what we call banter in the UK, you know, a little bit of a joke and a laugh with your colleagues, and maybe, you know, making a joke, oh, you know, mild sight, you know, a bit late, you know, this kind of thing. You know, it's as long as it's meant in the right way, it's meant in a joking, kind of fun way, and not a nasty way. This is actually quite an important part of being in a team, I feel. Whenever I've been in a team where there's been no humour, I've felt almost as if I'm dying, like no air, right? So I did a placement at a law firm when I was younger, and I honestly thought I was going to die of boredom, because there was just like zero humour in the office at all from anybody at any time. And I couldn't stand it. So the last thing I'd like to talk about is the tone of voice. You can normally tell by somebody's tone of voice if they need your support or if they're feeling overwhelmed. Some people speak very, very fast when they're in a rush because they kind of want to get back to what they're doing. And some people speak really slowly because they're really thinking about what they're saying. And when somebody speaks that slowly, that means very often that they're paranoid about making a mistake. And that's when you need to look at the culture of your team. Because if somebody is so worried about making a mistake, you're not going to get the best out of that person. So, check in with your team members, keep them on your radar, and have a think about the things that you can improve to make yourself a more approachable and likable person at work. Because if you're looking for a new job, that's what the recruiters are looking for. So just to summarise then, I'd like to give you a little list of things you can look at. And of course, as in every episode, I will give you a little communication challenge at the end. Okay, so we're talking about things like behaviours and habits, comments, examples, voice, body language, gestures, humour, compassion and availability. Why don't you try this out? Take an A4 piece of paper, and on the left I want you to have things written down like behaviours, habits, comments, examples, voice, body language, gestures, humour, compassion, availability, and anything else that you value from the people that you work with. At the top, I'd like you to have a list of names of people that you like working with, and 2 or 3 maybe that you don't like working with. Nobody's going to see this, just you. I don't need to see it, they don't need to see it. It's just an exercise, an observational exercise. Then I want you to think about who has these specific traits. And then I want you to think about what you can work on this week from that list of popularity traits. What do you do? What do you say? And what do you know? And if you feel that it's about time that you started having a bigger impact at work and taking on more responsibility, but you feel like either your English or your communication skills in English are holding you back, then why not just sign up for a British virtual tea break and we'll talk through what you need to get you there. Maybe I'm the right person to work with you. I'd love to find out. I will speak to you next week talking about a different communication topic. In fact, let's talk about feedback. And remember, be the very best communicator that you can be. It's Corinne Wilhelm from the Clever Together Communication podcast, brought to you by English speaking experts. Goodbye. And if you're a pen and paper kind of person like me, then head on over to English Speaking Experts /podcast /120, and there will be a template for you to use to do this exercise and some useful vocabulary that I've mentioned in the show that you could use yourself at work. So take care, have a great week, over and out.